Story 1. All of the commercials about a preventative medicine for human immunodeficiency virus and acquired immunodeficiency syndrome and the fact that a cure or effective treatment is widely available. Story 2. They would probably think Skynet won, then realize we voluntarily put listening devices in our homes and call them smart. Story 3. They would be horrified at everyone filming each other and themselves, and how you can become a celebrity or a social outcast based on it. Story 4. How many Americans have turned against one another, allowing politics, news, and the internet to divide us so others can profit from our pain without hiding it. Story 5. Skynet exists in most electronic devices in the home, seamlessly staying silently and instantly connected to the internet without occupying the phone line. We still have not returned to the moon. Additionally, we have not all died from acquired immune deficiency syndrome or gang violence. Story 6. For all those saying artificial intelligence, sorry, but no, that would probably not surprise them most. Artificial intelligence has been an element of science fiction almost since computers existed. What would likely surprise them is how little we have done with space and that flying cars and fusion power are still things of the future. Also, malls are basically gone. Story 7. My cell phone is now my computer, camera, television, radio, and it fits easily in my pocket. I buy everything on something called the internet with the same phone. In 1990, if I did not want to be bothered, I would take the phone off the hook. Now, it holds everything. Story 8. Everything. To name some specifics, the internet. Most people did not have computers in their homes, but now we all have multiple computers in our homes, each connected to the internet. The internet is a huge part of daily life, including podcasts, social media, and artificial intelligence. E-commerce. In 1990, most people did not understand the internet. Now, virtually all shopping can be done from the comfort of your couch and delivered anywhere from an hour to a few days. Cell phones. In the 1996 film Scream, a high school student is asked what he is doing with a cellular telephone. And while he said everyone has one, that was far from reality. Cell phones were expensive and mostly used by business people and the wealthy. Today, nearly everyone, including children, has a cell phone. Phones and tablets. The phones and tablets we have today would seem like pure science fiction to people from the 1990s. Even a relatively inexpensive tablet today is far more powerful than any computer of that time. Televisions. In 1990, a 45 to 50-inch rear projection TV cost around $5,000 or more and was a status symbol. Now, 100-inch TVs can be found for under $2,000. The technology, size, price, and picture quality would seem like science fiction. Media. People were at the height of VHS use in 1990. DVDs, 4K discs, and streaming video or music would be mind-blowing. Video games. Console and PC games would astonish them. Super Mario World was popular in 1990. Modern graphics, scale, and virtual reality would be almost impossible to grasp. 3D printing. This technology would also seem like science fiction. Donald Trump is president. Trump was a well-known celebrity in the 1990s, so him becoming president would seem absurd, much like someone in the 1960s might have found Ronald Reagan's presidency surprising. There is an awful lot about today's society that would seem like absolute science fiction to the average person from 1990. Story 9. Hard to say. Sounds strange, but maybe how clean everything is. While heating from burning coal was mostly done by 1990, most buildings were still blackened from it then. Littering was also much worse, as was graffiti. The lack of payphones would probably be surprising. The size of televisions would amaze many people. Liquid crystal displays were about the only flat panel in the 1990s, and they were mostly tiny monochromatic screens in pocket games. The largest screen most people would see was about 20 inches, 2 feet deep, and very heavy. The idea of a 65-inch television that was so light one person could carry it, with a crystal clear picture, would amaze many people. Sometimes I catch myself watching something on the television, transferring it to the phone, and walking around the house watching it, and I have to take a moment to notice how truly miraculous that is. The way everything is so integrated and works wirelessly would again be a wonder. Story 10. Michael Jackson is dead. Prince is dead. Madonna is still alive. Hulk Hogan is a racist and dead. Donald Trump is the president. The man who deals in real estate, him. There was also a black president. The Twin Towers were hit by planes the day after Michael Jackson performed his last concert. Sit down because there is a war, many shootings, and other serious issues we need to discuss. Story 11. Everybody is lonely, and there is no attempt to fix it. Everyone is broken, and no resolution is in sight. There is no common ground. It is only black and white. Why is a cheeseburger at McDonald's more than $1? Story 12. 1. Trump, obviously. 2. China being so developed while Japan stagnated. Back then, China was still very poor while Japan was at its peak. 3. Outside of computer-related things, they would probably be rather unimpressed with technological progress. Also, that we have not gone back to the moon. Story 13. The technological jump in video games is remarkable. Super Mario World was released in 1990, which was only 35 years ago. If you showed someone from that year Death Stranding 2 and explained that it is a video game, their mind would explode. Story 14. The number of large chain stores that have gone out of business includes Toys R Us, Kmart, Circuit City, Payless, Borders, Party City, Rite Aid, fabric stores, Delia's music chain stores, and others. Malls are declining, and independent stores have also gone out of business. Story 15. Democrats strongly disliked President George H. W. Bush and Republicans strongly disliked President Bill Clinton. Both groups would be mortified by what is happening today. Story 16. In 1991, when the Berlin Wall fell and the Soviet Union collapsed, it marked the end of conflict and a great opportunity for lasting peace. There were some remaining troubles in the 1990s, notably in Yugoslavia and Rwanda, but by and large, the world was at peace. We squandered that great opportunity. Look at us now. Serious wars are taking place and tension is everywhere. Story 17. How all the biggest crises of the time are still not solved and are actually worse for the most part. War and instability with Russia and former Soviet states. War and instability in the Middle East. War and instability in Africa. Global warming and the hole in the ozone layer. Dependency on oil. Drug epidemic. Virus epidemics such as the human immunodeficiency virus. China's human rights violations. Globalization and trade wars. Story 18. Hulk Hogan died, and news networks barely mentioned it. Ozzy Osbourne died, and news networks spent days praising him. Story 19. How people no longer seek to be polite and intelligent in their conversations with others. Each generation is parenting progressively worse. Story 20. People record themselves stuffing their mouths with extreme amounts of food, and others enjoy watching them. Story 21. Cell phones and basic online computers did exist. That's an easy trap to fall into. I would say, are The Simpsons still on television? Story 22. Armed masked men are abducting people from the streets of America and sending them to prisons in foreign countries without due process. Story 23. I am going to repurpose an answer someone else gave to a similar question here 15 years ago. I possess a device in my pocket capable of accessing the entirety of information known to mankind. I use it to look at pictures of cats and get in arguments with strangers. Story 24. It has got to be the phones. If you told someone from 1990 that they could have a small rectangular prism that they could keep in their pocket and access all human knowledge, they would be surprised. Story 25. People communicated with mobile computers the size of a wallet. Computers at that time used floppy drives and were large. The internet was not even commercially widespread. Story 26. Artificial intelligence without a doubt. It is honestly the most science fiction nonsense out there. Phones that look like screens, we had that in datapads and devices in Star Trek. Even the Star Trek computer you could talk to and analyze data, we get it, that is somewhat like artificial intelligence. Synthesizing completely fake movies based on descriptions and reproducing people's voices in real time, then asking questions and requesting analysis of information and watching the system just go out and do research for you, that is actually difficult for most people to comprehend. Even technology experts at the time were just starting to see the internet and tensor and logic processing in graphics cards. How do you go from Google not even being a thing and graphics cards being for games all the way to we just bought a $100,000 graphics processing unit? Oh yeah, it does generic math now, put it in a server, and run 400 billion parameters through a query you provided to generate results for you. What? It took us 35 years to get there. No, actually things were pretty incremental until about 2018, then it exploded exponentially and caused world shortages in semiconductors with ongoing geopolitical concerns about who gets the hardware to actually run this technology. Story 27. I honestly think that Donald Trump has formed a new National Socialist German Workers' Party and controlled the United States. As boring as that is. Story 28. That America voted for a man so obviously influenced by Russia. Was the sight of all his followers dressing in red not an obvious sign? Story 29. You can't do math. Can you? I was born in 1991. I am 33 years old. Honestly, nothing surprises me that much anymore. Story 30. How you cannot do anything without a pocket touchscreen computer. And how there are no payphones, phone books, or newsstands. Their first instinct would probably be to call someone. They would look for the kind of phone they are used to and be unable to find one. Then they would look for a newspaper to find out where and when they are, and be unable to find one. Story 31. The world stopped for a disease for so long. We ran out of toilet paper. Flying cars and the Jetsons are not a reality yet. Story 32. Well, they would know what a computer is, but they very likely would not know about the internet. Even if they did, they would be astonished at how completely it has integrated into every aspect of life. Any smartphone would look like a miracle to them, and the fact that everyone has one. Global positioning system, all the free pornography available, artificial intelligence. Having lived through the 1980s, they would be familiar with President Reagan's trickle-down economics and why it is basically false. However, I think they would be shocked at the state of today's grand old party, filled with hate, deceit, hypocrisy, and openly against virtually any policy that might materially benefit the average American. President Donald Trump would simply not compute. How does an obvious liar, con man, and idiot not only become president but do so twice, once after inciting an insurrection that everyone saw on live television? Story 33. Technological advancements are exciting innovations. Nearly every advanced consumer product we have today was once theorized to be available in the near future. People from 1990 would likely be surprised at how much time others spend glued to screens. To them, a computer is an advanced work tool. If they tried the internet, they would be surprised by how rude, unintelligent, and thin-skinned people are when they are not communicating face-to-face. Widespread surveillance capitalism might make them believe that the Soviet Union won the Cold War. Story 34. Smartphones provide instant phone and video access to the entire world. Everything ever written, every movie and TV show, and every song ever made, all fitting in your pocket. In 1990, my freshman year of college, I would have been amazed. Story 35. There are still wars and homeless people. People have not yet evolved to become more civilized and loving. Story 36. The technology has advanced significantly. Yes, a basic internet existed then, but it was nothing like today. We all have a small handheld computer that contains a high-resolution camera. You can look up any information you want from anywhere in seconds. Make free calls, including video calls, to anyone nationally and internationally if you use the right applications. If you forget what you were looking at a few days ago, the browser history will remind you so you can pick up where you left off. Story 37. Scientific illiteracy that would embarrass a medieval peasant has managed to bring back measles and polio. Story 38. All the things that were then only 20 years in the future, such as personal jetpacks, flying cars, autonomous vehicles, and cheap, effective, reliable nuclear fusion power, are still at least 20 years away. Story 39. How heavily we are surveilled now. We had much more privacy back then. Surveillance cameras on buildings were very rare. We did not have phones and cars that tracked our location and listened to our conversations in real life. We did not have data companies combing our online activity to collect and compile our personal information. We did not have airports that made taking your picture at the security gate mandatory. We did not have agencies that could take pictures of crowds, process those pictures through artificial intelligence, and almost instantly identify nearly every person in the image. We did not have drones that could detect specific activity in an area and relay it back to someone in real time. I could go on, but that is just what comes to mind now. Story 40. I can tell you that, from someone who has been on this earth for over 50 years, the biggest shock for someone coming from 1990 is the smartphone. Story 41. They cannot return their blockbuster videos they rented over the weekend, and their cell phones have cameras and internet access. The Cold War is not over after all. Story 42. The person who was struggling financially running a casino less than 100 miles from New York City and Philadelphia, the first and fourth largest metropolitan areas of the United States, is now the President of the United States. Story 43. Honestly, I think that everyone has an iPhone or iPad. When the iPad came out in 2010, I set money aside because it was something I had only seen on Star Trek. I guess it is a boring answer, but I am surprised to see it mentioned less than it has been. Story 44. How overweight everyone is. How offended people get. How it is not nearly as good as it was before they went to sleep. Story 45. Integration of interconnected computers in every aspect of life and what comes with it. Lack of major infrastructural changes. For example, no real advances in mass transit, few rapidly expanding cities outside the Middle East, rail travel still ignored, supersonic air travel abandoned, no flying cars, unreliable autonomous vehicles, collapsing infrastructure, and no government space program. Story 46. Being able to make video calls, and small computers that fit in the palm of your hand, with no children running around the neighborhood. Story 47. The fact that we carry computers, phones, answering machines, maps, global positioning system, and cameras in one device that fits in our pocket. Story 48. Probably the fact that he had slept for 35 years, then cell phones, then the new style of women's bikinis. Story 49. How rich some people and companies are. There are multiple trillion-dollar companies out there now. Story 50. Everyone literally has a computer in their pocket and can access a vast amount of information in seconds without dial-up. Story 51. A device smaller than a Sony Walkman can make phone calls, take pictures and videos, play music, play video games, and make video calls. Story 52. We were lied to. Advances in technology did not make all our lives easier and better. Instead, they made us spend more time doing the administrative tasks that companies and organizations once handled, through digital offloading disguised as helpful applications. A few people became richer and more powerful than nation-states. While our data was sold, our privacy vanished, and social media caused stress and depression among children and encouraged loneliness and misogyny in men. Story 53. Ah man, there are no blockbuster movies in the future. I guess I will have to watch a rerun of The Jeffersons. Story 54. Trying to go to a concert. Trying to book it through Ticketmaster. Fighting against millions of scalper bots. The cost. When they get there, everyone is on their phones instead of enjoying the music. Story 55. When they went looking for a nightclub to party at, they found that all the young people were depressed, anxious, and addicted to handheld computers. Story 56. My dad was born in the 1930s, and he was always impressed by smartphones. He couldn't understand Googling something and getting information instantly. He always had us look things up for him, and he loved videos that showed how to fix things. He would occasionally comment, with all the information we have available, how are kids so dumb these days? Story 57. No long-distance phone calls, no cellular phone roaming fees when traveling to another city. Internet speeds. A supercomputer in your hands. Story 58. I would say the transgender community. Drag was popular, but the transgender community was much smaller. Other than that, not much changed. Technology improved as expected. Politics are still problematic, but it is easier to call out issues due to the internet. Story 59. There is obviously still discrimination, but I believe someone from the 1990s would be very surprised at how far lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender plus rights have come. I am speaking from a United Kingdom perspective. Story 60. If it was exactly in 1990, they missed the collapse of the Soviet Union, even though they did see the fall of the Berlin Wall, so they might have expected it. What would probably shock them the most is the amount of surveillance we just shrug away. Every device we use is constantly listening to us, and all that information, which is constantly gathered, is sold to companies that use it against us. Another thing that would shock them is how unmanned warfare has evolved. They might have expected robots in warfare, as that is a common science fiction trope, but not in the way the Ukraine war is being called World War I with suicide drones flying around. Another big thing is space travel, especially Space Exploration Technologies Corporation. They probably believe that space travel is done by futuristic space shuttles, but who could have guessed that we are right now working with some of the most retro 1950s-looking science fiction rockets there have ever been. Story 61. The fact that cars do not fly and we were only recently taught how to wash our hands. There are still some billboards up about this. Story 62. Probably everyone is glued to their phones now, and phones in general. Few people had mobile phones back then. Now everyone has a supercomputer in their pocket, and we would rather look at that than actually talk to people and socialize. Story 63. Handheld all-in-one devices are vastly more powerful and convenient than anything available in the 1990s. Phone, flashlight, calculator, map, notebook, compass, instant messenger, music player with thousands of songs, games, high-speed internet, movies, and much more are available instantly in high quality. Story 64. You can watch your taxi cab, such as Uber or Lyft, traveling to you. Also, everything can be delivered to your home now. Story 65. Technology would be expected to have progressed, but the fall of the Soviet Union, having happened mostly peacefully, would be confusing. Story 66. The constant barrage of advertisements has become somewhat familiar. Whether it is a website, social media, television, or even the streets, it is nonstop. Story 67. There is no union of Soviet Socialist republics and the Soviet bloc countries. The Cold War was a major conflict in the second half of the 20th century. Story 68. Everything about cell phone and social media culture would astonish a time traveler's world. I was an adult in both 1990 and 2025. Story 69. Having combined portable computers and communication devices that can reach people and access information from anywhere in the world and take photos to share with others, all in a thin slab that can fit in a pocket, it does make me wonder what the next 35 years might hold. Story 70. Cell phones, especially the ability to stream television and movies almost anywhere on incredibly detailed screens. Otherwise, news such as the September 11th attacks or Donald Trump as president. Story 71. King George III is back, and he is more deranged than ever. A 40 miles per gallon car that runs on gasoline, but if you do not need to go more than 42 miles in a day, it can be run strictly on plug-in electric power from an ordinary receptacle. I have been driving a REV4 Prime for 25,000 miles, and I have only gone to a gas station 3 times. If you accidentally touch a light bulb, there are no second-degree burns. Story 72. The cell phone would have blown my mind in 1990. It's a phone that I can take anywhere. Amazing. It's also a camera and it doesn't need film. It has built-in maps. I don't need my street atlas. Wait, it offers turn-by-turn directions and estimates my arrival time. Is this magic? I can listen to any song I like and I don't need cassettes or compact discs. How does that work? I can watch television on it. Are you kidding me? How many AA batteries does it use? Oh, it also has a reference work built in, and I can just ask a question and it will tell me the answer? What do you mean by text messages? Cell phones were a slow build of features that felt revolutionary at the time, but jumping from nothing to what we have today would be nothing short of miraculous to 1990. It would be beyond comprehension. Story 73. So many things. A handheld computer called a phone. We were using old disk operating system floppy disks in Radio Shack computers with no internet. Cars with digital screens and computers using electricity for fuel. Also, social networks like Facebook taking over normal relationships and communication, and how people share everything with everyone online. Story 74. iPhones and constant social media use, while phone books are a form of doxing, a new word to be avoided. Story 75. What do you mean I cannot buy an airplane ticket at the terminal 3 minutes before takeoff, and why do I have to take my shoes off? Story 76. Trump in the White House. Me from 1990 would be just crying and laughing at the insanity of it all. Story 77. Why are people walking around staring at these things? You can shop through your computer. Amazon. Why would I go to South America just for a pair of socks? Where are the flying cars? The self-tying shoelaces? Story 78. You people are relatively too sensible for your own good. House prices are back to levels seen in the Victorian era and earlier compared to income. Story 79. Everything was in place then, just more primitive. The internet, online ordering, cell phones, and video games were not common in 1990 but in their infancy. I remember getting really high in undergrad back then, speculating with people about exactly what we have now. What would be shocking is what has disappeared or is rarely used, not what is present. Blockbuster, mom-and-pop video stores, VCRs, Kmart, Sears, landlines, tape decks, and CD players. Legal cannabis would be a shock, but the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws was very active back then, so not too far-fetched. Cures for human immunodeficiency virus and hepatitis C are big developments, too. Story 80. The willingness to give up privacy in exchange for convenience. I remember when privacy was a thing to be expected. Pepperidge Farm remembers. Story 81. Everyone is staring at their phones all the time in public. And it is really strange. Why are so many people wearing surgical masks? Where did all the smokers go? For that matter, where is my ashtray on this airplane? Story 82. How often does the television show where Donald Trump plays the president air? And what is it called? It looks really stupid. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.